Good evening. Welcome to the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education Committee of the Whole meeting of May 11th, 2026. We don't traditionally take roll at this meeting, but I will bring to your attention that Karen Bradford and Crystal Frank are unable to be with us this evening. They'll watch the meeting, which we have that ability nicely in this day and age, to catch up before our voting meeting, but they will not be able to be present with us this evening. Before we begin our meeting, board members, I would like the privilege of moving the Human Resources Committee up to item 3, so right after Committee of the Whole, as we'll be covering some superintendent search information, and I want to make sure we have the largest possible audience that will be listening at that time. Is that all right with everybody?
That's fine.
Yep. Okay, we will go ahead and do that. This meeting, as a Committee of the Whole meeting, is one at which you will hear a lot of discussion about the items that are coming before the board this evening. However, we will not be voting on any items. Voting will be any item that we're ready to vote on, that item will be sent to the agenda for our next meeting, which is our general meeting, or what some folks refer to as our voting meeting. So if you want to hear a lot of discussion, questions and answers, and so forth on the items, you've come to the right place. If you'd like to have an agenda for this evening, I do see we do have some audience members. The agendas can be found just outside the door to my left on the table there. If anybody would like to participate in audience communications, if you can just make sure that someone at the table gets your blue slip. Mr. McFarland, can you raise your hand and I've got someone who's got well, not quite yet, but I mean, just bring your blue slip up so I can call your name at the appropriate time. Could we just have your blue slip, Mike, so I can call it? Thanks. I need the slip, not the people quite yet. Thank you. As far as agendas go, that's where you can find agendas from the room. If you are watching from home, just don't have a name. If you're watching from home and you'd like a copy of our agenda, you can find it online on our website, which is livoniapublicschools.org. If you hover over the board tab, you can drop down to the board meeting information, and you can find our agendas there so you can follow along. We teach a lot of things in our school district, and besides reading and writing and all kinds of other academic subjects, we do teach character traits. The most important, in our opinion, is that of respect. You have our word that we will treat one another and everyone who comes before this board with respect this evening, and we ask that everyone who's present this evening do the same. Nicely in LPS, we do state that at the beginning of each of our meetings, and we all do behave respectfully, and it is a joy to serve here. Let's see here. I think that's it for this evening, for the housekeeping items. The first item on our agenda this evening is going to be audience communications. I do have one blue slip. I don't have a name on it. I do believe it's somebody in the Tessa family. If you can come on down, you can have a seat. And on your microphone, if you can just tap the little squiggle on the very bottom until it turns, there you go. And if you could introduce yourself.
I'm Melina. I go to Frost. Next year I'm going to Holmes, and I'm very excited for the swim team.
Excellent. So are we. Yeah. Would you like to share anything else about it, Nina?
I'm just excited to get to swim with my friends.
Sounds good. And your name is Nina, N-I-N-A, is that correct?
Melina.
Oh, Melina, I'm sorry. I didn't have it on your sheet here. M-E-L-I-N-A.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'll make a quick comment too. I wanted to thank Mr.
If you could
Itu.
introduce yourself
sorry.
also.
Mike Testa, Livonia. I wanted to thank Mr. Itu for bringing the proposal forward for middle school swim. I also wanted to thank Franklin AD, Dusty Hall, and Holmes principal, Mrs. Kuzno. I know they were also very instrumental in help push this forward, but I'm sure Mr. Itu had a lot of help from a lot of people. My girls in particular, my two youngest, are very much looking forward to this. Melina will have 1 year left, and then Stella over here will have 2 full years, assuming we have a team starting next year. But Melina's excited to be the first inaugural team. Stella's a little jealous. She wishes she could be on that inaugural team, but she'll have to wait a year.
Pretty soon.
But, yeah. And lastly, I don't think I'll be back for another meeting before he retires, but wanted to wish Mr. Francis well. And thank you for your contributions to LPS. You will be missed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do not have any other blue slips. Would anybody else in the audience like to participate in communications this evening? No? All righty. Moving on to Committee of the Whole. We have Mrs. Jenkins is going to be bringing forth the item. Item 2A is the notification of communications recognition. Turn it over to Mrs. Jenkins.
Thank you, President Burton. Good evening, everyone. So a little preview of our points of pride recognitions for the regular board meeting on May 26th. First, we'll be recognizing 7 students who are named National Merit Scholarship finalists. Those are coming from all 3 of our high schools, so that'll be exciting. That's our kind of a standing agenda item for our May meeting. And then secondly, we'll be recognizing 3 state champions from the Livonia High School figure skating team.
Excellent.
So those students are also from all 3 of our high schools, and it'll be a great presentation.
That sounds exciting.
Yes, thank
Alrighty.
you.
Sounds great, thank you. And when you mentioned May 26th, just for the folks who are listening from home, that is going to be a Tuesday, Tuesday following Memorial Day. We had a lot of scheduling conflicts amongst board and superintendent and so forth, and those of us who need to be present for these meetings. So thank you to the board members who are willing to make an adjustment. We typically keep our Mondays carved out, but I do appreciate our board being flexible and moving that voting meeting to Tuesday. So if you're watching from home and you're interested in the voting meeting, it'll be on Tuesday instead of Monday of that week.
That's a great reminder. Thanks.
The next item on our agenda, seeing as we're going to move human resources up, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Mr. McFarland, who's going to handle the Human Resources Committee. Mr. McFarland.
Thank you, President Burton. So I just wanted to provide an update to the board and the cabinet and those viewing kind of on the superintendent search that we're about to be taking on. So good evening. As some of you may be aware, Superintendent Andrea Oquist has announced her retirement effective December 31st, 2026. Her performance in said role has been nothing short of exemplary. She is endeared by LPS students, staff, this board, and the community alike. Her years of experience, robust skill set, and timely humor will all very much be missed. Moving forward, the Board of Education has hired Michigan Leadership Institute, or MLI, to assist in the hiring process of a new superintendent. MLI specializes in training potential superintendents and assisting districts in their searches. They have worked extensively with many districts around the state, and Livonia Public Schools has used them successfully in the past as well. They will be helping to guide the Board of Ed through this process. At this time, the Board of Ed has determined that this will be strictly an internal search. We believe that we have a strong team of administrators in Livonia Public Schools who understand the culture, the multifaceted of our large district, and live out the vision and mission. If for some reason an internal candidate is not selected by the board, we will expand our search to external candidates. Any questions from the board before I move forward with the schedule?
No.
Good. So we've established the following timeline with the help of MLI. Monday, April 6th, a planning meeting with MLI will take place during took place during our study session. From May 26th to June 5th, we'll have a stakeholder survey available to staff, students, parents, and community members to gather input for the creation of the ideal candidate profile. MLI is working with Stacy Jenkins, our Director of Communications, to accomplish this very important task, so please keep an eye out for said survey. Tuesday, June 2nd, a series of in-person meetings will be held at the school board office to engage various stakeholders and obtain their feedback on the search process. Our representatives from MLI will be conducting the meetings. School board members will intentionally not be present in order to ensure that everyone is comfortable to speak freely, but we will get very detailed feedback. On Monday, June 22nd, the Board of Education will meet with MLI to finalize the position announcement. June 24th to July 8th, the superintendent position will be posted internally. Applications will be accepted until 4 p.m. on Wednesday, July the 8th. Monday, July 13, in a closed session as allowed by law, MLI will present applicants for the board or for the position to the board. The board will determine which candidates to interview and prepare for the first round of interviews. On Monday, July the 20th, the first round of interviews will be conducted by the Board of Education in the board office. Interviews are open to the public in accordance with the law. Wednesday, July 22nd, the board will meet to select finalists for the position. Monday, July 27th, the second round of interviews will be conducted by the Board of Education in the board office. Again, interviews are open to the public in accordance with the law. Thursday, July 30th, the Board of Education will select the superintendent. During the month of August, the board will work to finalize the contract with said new superintendent. In the months of November and December, the incoming superintendent will shadow Andrea Oquist to get a better feel for the job moving forward. January 1st, 2027, the incoming superintendent will take over as superintendent of Livonia Public Schools. Now that I've gone over the timeline, any questions or comments from the board? Okay. The 7 members of this board fully understand the importance of this task as likely one of the most important we will be charged with in our time in these roles. We take it with the utmost sincerity and seriousness. There will be several times throughout this process that stakeholders will have the opportunity to share their thoughts, and we very much encourage you to do so. Ultimately, the decision will be up to the 7 members of this board to conduct the process and make the final selection. I will leave you with this. Throughout her illustrious career, Andrea Oquist has served every role she's held with distinction and aplomb. As saddened as we are to see her retire, we are equally excited she's heading into this new chapter on her terms with many happy years ahead. We also want to thank Andrea for developing such a talented and deep bench of strong leaders at LPS. We are highly confident that on January 1st, we will be welcoming the next very capable individual into the role of Superintendent of Livonia Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I don't have any other questions or comments. We have such mixed emotions going through this whole process. We have the utmost care and respect for you personally and professionally. We're thrilled that you get to retire, and as Dave said, on your own terms and going out at such a great time. I know that you've put a lot of care and thought into the timing of this, so that it does not coincide with major things such as contracts and bonds and so forth that take a lot of time and attention away from the district, or in the district rather, and so that the new person coming in can establish themselves before the next big rocks come along. For that, we thank you. It's been noticed, and that the timing is so good, and all of us said, yeah, it's so good because she made sure it was going to be at a really good time. So even on your retirement, you are looking out for the best interest of the district in addition to yourself and your family. Thank you for that. And as Dave mentioned also, thank you for developing such a deep bench so that we feel confident going with an internal search. That gives me a great deal of calm, knowing that we have a lot of good folks who are very qualified and who have love and passion for this district. So I'm, yeah. Any other comments from board members? No. All righty. Does that conclude Human Resources? Okay, all righty. I will now turn it over to Mr. Johnson for the Operations Committee.
Thank you, President Burton. We only have, believably, only one item on operations tonight, and
Yeah.
and this is one of our more serious discussions, our copy paper order for 2627, and we have Mr. Green to help us.
Yes, thank you. Boy, how do we go from 11 to 1 in just a month and a half? But this is that time of year where we do start doing a lot of planning ahead, and as you know, we talk about bulk salt, and we'll do that in a couple months, and I know you'll be anticipating that update. But the purchase of copy paper is something that Mr. Francis, prior to myself, brought every year around this time. And so Mr. Lau's office, as you'll see in your packet this evening, put forth a recommendation from Wayne purchase agreement, and that is something that you have in your packet this evening. And what it does is it breaks down his recommendation for how many cartons he's going to order of white domestic pastels, and then 11 by 17 white paper. And the reason why we do this ahead of time is we want to get that pricing locked in, and we want to be ready to start the school year. So you can see from last year's prices per carton on the memo from myself, there's just a slight increase, which was nice. And so, getting this in now with kind of some of the trends in the economic world right now, we want to make sure we get that in now and lock that pricing in. And so we'd ask that this would be a voting item next week to have the board approve on, and we'll move forward with this. And this is going to be out of the general fund, and you can see the total cost of that would be $144,083. And one of the questions you may have is we store this in our warehouse, and then our warehouse team ships it out to the building as needed. And the storage of the paper in a climate-controlled environment is very important, and that's part of what the building supervisors are directed of where to store the paper in the building. Because if the building stores it in a proper location, like our warehouse, we typically have nice success with that paper. So, but store it in the wrong place. Those of you that have worked copy machines before know what could happen. So there's a little bit of an education piece to this as well.
Questions, comments from the board? President Burton.
Speaking of problems with the paper, it was probably 1 or 2 years ago that we were having an issue with the paper. Has that, I don't need the details of how, but has that been resolved?
Yes, that has been resolved. Mr. Francis
Okay.
resolved that last year.
Okay, terrific. And I'm all right with this being on a consent agenda.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Johnson, may I just ask something of Mr. Green?
You may.
Thank you. I noticed, as we all, I'm sure, did, the difference between the pastel and the white, almost double per carton. And I know you've been doing a deep dive with Mr. Clan into click fees, and Mr. Francis started with taking a look at color copies versus, and again, that's color copies, color print versus black and white. This is paper. But all of those types of things, one of the things you had mentioned was the education piece about this.
Absolutely.
Could you just spend a minute
Absolutely.
talking about why it's so important for our folks to understand when we use, and this is coming from someone who loved Astro Bright paper as a teacher and principal and color copies, but just
Sure.
the economic
Yeah.
impact of those decisions.
Absolutely. So the cost of paper is the cost of paper, and there is definite need to make copies still in this day and age. One would think with all the technological advances, Chromebooks, et cetera, all the things you've supported over the years, we'd have less copying being done in our district, and that indeed is true to some extent. But one of the things we've discovered in the warehouse committee meeting last year, and in some of the studies that Mr. Clan has done this year with getting some reports from Rico, our copier supplier, is that a lot of folks are choosing color when they don't need to, and they can keep that on black and white, and that's about a 7 times extra click count fee. And so what we do in our contract with Rico is we have a click fee, and so if it's a black and white copy versus a color copy, there's quite a bit of a price differential. Our defaults are set to black and white, which is good, but some of that we've discovered has been really re-educating folks, and we did a big push around, I want to say just prior to COVID, there was a lot of education going out in the schools about that data point. And what I've discovered this year, just having informal conversations with staff, is they didn't know there was a difference in click count between a color copy, and it's just something they don't think about when they're making copies. So that's one of the pieces. Also, something that, sneak preview, you will be hearing from me next year is one of our big initiatives is looking at the age of our copy machines. They're getting old, and as they get older, the click fee to service them goes up. So in the first 5 years, the click fee is pretty cheap. It's a great deal. It's a budget savings, so to speak. But so there's an equipment part next year, and there's an education part next year, and also jobs that can be sent to our print department is another educational piece that really Strachey out in the print department is fantastic about turning around jobs for our buildings. He works quite a bit with Ms. Corey and Ms. O'Brien's department to do some of those bulk printing jobs. But as we've expanded on PBIS and other bulk printing type of activities, we'd like to educate our staff that every once in a while you might want to pause instead of going and spending a half hour at the copy machine in the morning, but thinking about using our print shop. That takes a little more advanced planning, but it's all part of the dollars at the end of the day. So there's the dollars for the paper, there's the dollars for the click fee, and then there's also a definite need that we update our copy machines in the near future. So that's kind of all of that, and it's all connected.
Thank you.
I do have, an observation and a question. Although the cost of the white paper has gone up, it looks like 61 cents, the cost of the pastel has gone down $1.15.
Isn't that interesting? I wish I knew why.
Yeah, I just saw that, and it was interesting to me. Second of all, under the, what we showed for next year, the 11 by 17, but it doesn't show 11 by 17 for this past year. I'm assuming we still used 11 by 17.
We did. That's an omission on my part. I can get you
Okay.
that information if you like.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that this wasn't something new that was being added to the,
We ordered 11 by 17 this year as well.
okay.
Absolutely.
I assume so. Okay. That's all I had. If nothing else, and we will put this on the consent. And thank you for being here and being so patient, Mr. Green.
You know, do you want to talk about anything else since we only had one agenda item tonight?
You know, do you do a soft shoe?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, President Burton. That concludes operations.
Thank you. Next item is a Division of Instruction Committee, and Mrs. Bradford is not with us this evening, so I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Acosta to take this committee.
Thank you, President. I just forgot
Yeah,
where I was.
Burton, that's okay.
President Burton.
Yep.
I was thinking Bradford.
It's all these Bs, sorry.
Yes. So we have for item 4A, middle school swim update, Mr. E2.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for the opportunity tonight. But we are coming forth to discuss the middle school swim program. We've done several months of exploratory research on the interest level within our community in Livonia Public Schools to bring middle school swim to our students. We put a survey out into the field. We had an outstanding response rate and outstanding support for this program. About 75% of those who responded had overwhelming support of, yes, let's put this into the system. It's a wonderful bridge between our middle schools and our high schools, and we're looking forward to the opportunity to put this on the voting meeting for next week for approval for middle school swim at this point in time. Is there any questions for the group?
President Burton.
Just a comment, I thought it was interesting when we got the information back that from some of the folks who responded to the survey, even if they did not have a child who was going to be participating, they still were supportive of
Yes.
adding it to our repertoire of athletics.
Absolutely. And I should add in there that we are looking for, it's not finalized, but we're looking at the winter 2 season of the middle school schedule, which is the February and March months for the swim program.
Okay. And can you go over who covers which costs?
Who covers which costs?
Right, what costs would be the responsibility of the swimmer or their
Sure.
family, and which costs are covered by the district?
Yep, we can go through all those details. So the cost by the district will be equipment, like kickboards and things of those nature. It'll be the coaching stipends, depending on how many coaches we have, and that's part of the Schedule B LEA contract from that standpoint. And then we'll also cover the costs of officials for the meets throughout the course of the year. Typically, the families cover the costs of the swimsuits and the swim caps, because they're very unique to the style that student that swims in, from that standpoint. Yeah.
And I assume this would fall under the normal pay to participate fee structure,
It
correct?
would, yes, correct.
Okay.
And that'll all be set up through school pay.
Okay, all righty. And for myself, I am thrilled. I'm a firm believer that, I know for my own family, we chose Livonia Public Schools before our third kiddo was even born. So we did not know what they were going to need in terms of academics or extracurricular activities. But after doing a lot of research, we chose Livonia Public Schools because they had such a wide variety in both academic and extracurriculars. So I am always in favor of adding extracurricular activities to our offerings for our kids whenever we can. I think the lacrosse and the bowling were both huge hits that we added a number of years back. And to add this swim for boys and girls, I think it's just a fabulous idea. So thank you for putting the time and effort into it, because this is not just an easy thing to just quote-unquote ad. There's a lot of time and research that goes into it. So
There is,
thank you
and-
for putting all that in, because I think it'll benefit a large number of kiddos.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of thank yous out there in the community, and those, Mr. Testa and his family, the conversations that we've had over the last year or so, and the information he's brought forth to me, and then many other community members as well, so I'm very appreciative of that.
Mrs. O'Quist.
Thank you, Mrs. Acosta. I too wanted to acknowledge Mr. Etu's efforts in this, and really, we were thrilled to see such a strong response come back from not only our families, but our students. And we do see this as a great bridge to the high school, and there's enthusiasm for those teams, because it certainly builds a natural pipeline, and the benefit of that is having the high school coaches be the coaches for these teams. And so they can really begin to build that bridge, use our high school pools, and things of that nature. I also believe that, this may pull in students who were part of their local swim clubs, and perhaps were very active in the elementary years, and now can begin that process in middle school. And the nice thing as we enter the LVC is that those schools have middle school teams as well. And so we'll be able to work through both the LVC and the KLAA to have our students participate and compete with the schools in those two conferences. So it is a great both boys and girls ad. And I believe that once we get actual numbers, we can determine whether or not there's enough for a team at each school, or whether or not there would be a unified team.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Thank you. Mr. Ito, could you clarify, please, if this is a program that will be targeted towards students who are already experienced in competitive swimming outside of our district, or if it's open to students of all levels?
This is open to students of all levels, regardless if they're a novice swimmer or an advanced swimmer. Our coaches are excited to work with any student that's interested in joining that program. At this point in time, it'd be a non-cut sport. Of course, that can be adjusted based on the number that come out, but typically we allow swim to be a non-cut sport, especially at middle school.
Thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions? We're all thrilled for this opportunity.
We are too.
Love
This
it.
is
Thank
great.
you.
Great.
Thank you for all the work.
Thank you,
And for
everyone.
bringing this to us.
Okay.
Okay, we have item 4B, social studies textbook recommendation with Mrs. O'Brien.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am bringing a textbook recommendation for our middle school, 7th and 8th grade. This was one of the first textbooks that we did when we started getting Wayne County Enhancement Millage money, was middle school social studies. And at the time, we had a committee of teachers who looked at materials, and we went with Nat Geographic for 7th and 8th grade. So this was the book that we currently are using at 7th grade. Now, almost 10 years later, we had a committee of teachers. One teacher from 7th and 8th from each middle school worked throughout this school year looking at current and updated materials. They looked at 5 different textbook companies and went through the process of creating a rubric, looking at the platform and what the platform would offer, and then look at current updates. And so the committee is recommending TCI History Alive for 7th grade, 8th grade. So they're staying with Nat Geo for 7th grade, and we're moving to TCI for 8th grade. And TCI is what we use at 5-6, and we are using it currently at the middle school. But this team of teachers really felt that the materials in Nat Geo were better suited to our students. So we have a split. We're not using the same publisher. We don't have to use the same publisher. So students are familiar with the Nat Geo because we've been using it for years, and they're familiar with TCI because they will have been using it in 5-6. And so we're recommending both products. And as I updated in my memo, there is also an additional quote because MACAT teaches their social studies on a cycle. So they teach 7th grade all one year and 8th grade all one year with their students. And so Mrs. Rousseau added some additional licenses that we will have to use every other year. So what we are requesting is World History Nat Geo for 6 years and a textbook set for a textbook for each student, and that is for $129,177.40. And we are requesting then from TCI an additional, well, wait, I forgot the MACAP, because the Nat Geo has additional licenses for $5,400. In your memo, I merged it together, the two quotes. And then for TCI, our quote is for $93,890. So our total for both of them, I believe I put that in my memo, which I did not. So it is going to be about 220, I can figure it out. Yeah, exactly. Allison, can you do that? 93. My apologies. Are you trying to beat me, mister? I have $229,067.40. But I will do it with a calculator for next week to make sure that that number is read correctly into the record. So we are purchasing 6 years of licenses, textbooks for 7th and 8th graders at all 3 of our middle schools, and then additional digital licenses for MACAT, because they don't need 7th and 8th every year. They need a larger group of 7th, because they put 7th and 8th graders together at MACAT. They teach 7th grade social studies one year and 8th grade social studies the next. So we'll have to buy some additional digital licenses for them.
Are there any items we get at no cost?
All the teacher materials are at no cost, and professional development material, online professional development. So most textbook companies provide an online webinar or online live professional development as a part of your purchase. So for both of those companies, we get both of those. And from History Alive, there's also a vocabulary play cards that they utilize during class that also is being given to us for no cost.
All right, any questions? Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mrs. Acosta. Mrs. O'Brien,
Yeah.
I noted that these are 2025 editions. I know history is being made every day. Would this include history up through 2025, do you know?
Well, usually, so I believe our U.S. history is through industrialism, so that would not.
Okay.
So that's that part of U.S. history,
Okay.
and then world history is great civilizations. But what they will do is continually update the online platform.
Okay,
So if there are things that they need to change or activities for students, or there's new improvements in IT, then those platforms get updated each year.
okay. So they'll add something to it every year.
Yes, they review it, and then they, when teachers log on, there's updates.
Okay, and I know you were talking, our textbooks now are 10 years old. Do we anticipate that, again, because history is being made every day, that we're not going to go another 10 years before we need to update again? Or will we have basically I don't want to say a 10-year cycle, but something in that neighborhood?
I think, typically we are looking at materials, so the licenses will be good for 6 years. We usually do a review and say, are there big enough changes that we would want to make a change? Do we want to just continue with the same textbook, but add additional digital licenses for several years, which again, those are the most current. And then typically after that, if we renew it once, then we do a full textbook review.
Okay.
So
I
some,
think too, the nature of these, the world history would primarily remain the same, and even through industrialism.
Right,
I
it
think
fits in.
we're in better shape being able to hold on to these for up to 10 years.
And one of the interesting things that happened this year in looking at U.S. history is at high school, we didn't always get to current history. And so Mrs. Rousseau worked with the U.S. history teachers in our high schools to take some of the earlier units off and push them towards middle school so that they could get to current history in high school. So that was done this year as a part of like the connection in this work.
Between the two. Okay, all right, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments?
Would you mind leaving these
I
here
would
so the
not
board
mind
can take a
at
look through
all.
them?
Nope, that's why I brought them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Brien. And item 4C is 35M grant purchase.
Yes, so, our 35M grant is the grant that we applied for, aligned to the dyslexia law. And it had several parts to it you could choose your, application for, but we chose Tier 1 materials when we applied last spring. And we have since, we received a $1.1 million grant, but we wanted to be very thoughtful about how we were spending that money. And we brought to you a recommendation to purchase some updated small group instruction books. We purchased HMH 5th grade, so the grant is allowable K through 5. Even though we use HMH at 6, it didn't fall under the grant. And so we purchased several years of 5th grade materials that fits what we were already doing. And they have 2 platforms that come with HMH. One is called Amira, which has an assessment suite in it that we are going to start using next year at 5th grade. And then they have a writing component in HMH. So we've been having teachers use those this past year, and we're going to integrate them into our 5th grade units for next year. In that conversation, teachers were wondering about the writing piece for 3rd and 4th grade that goes along with HMH, and it's allowable under the grant because HMH's Into Reading is a K-5, they have K-6, but a K-5 program approved by the state of Michigan. So Mrs. Corey worked with a group of teachers at 3-4 where we have our integrated units. So we, created our own curriculum. We integrate science and social studies and then our literature units. And then they've taken what they read and they provide writing instruction around what they're reading. And teachers have asked for a little bit more robustness at that, especially at the upper grades. And so we went back to the grant and we would like to recommend purchasing Writable, so that's the writing piece of HMH, for 3rd and 4th grade teachers to use in our integrated unit. So Mrs. Corey is very thorough and very thoughtful, and she would take this platform and integrate it into what we're currently doing at our K4. And because it's grant covered, it would be great for us to try it and use it, and it's covered under the grant. And then in addition to that, as Webster Elementary is beginning to utilize our integrated modules and HMH at Family 3, we wanted to make sure we curate a group of small group instruction books for them that are at a higher level than might be in a K4. And so this purchase, again, Mrs. Corey worked with Webster teachers, curated books that align with the content of science and social studies plus literature. And so they have asked for books that are at a higher reading level but aligned to grade level standards. And so this purchase all comes through HMH, but it is covered by the grant because we've requested and then been approved to go back into the grant and buy more things with it. So you have to go through a process of requesting to reopen the grant and request additional purchases, and we receive that. So we would like to recommend purchasing $129,616.38 of additional materials from HMH in order to support 3rd and 4th grade writing and our Webster curriculum.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Brien. Any questions?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mrs. Costa. Mrs. O'Brien, based on the numbers, we still have close to $300,000 in the grant, right?
Yeah, we have more than enough for this, and we will leave some money on the table. Again, we didn't want to just buy things to buy things. We wanted to be purposeful and very interesting. Last Friday, they opened up this same grant for the following next 18 months. And so they're like, you can apply for Tier 1, assessment materials, and so it just opened on Friday, so I'm going to dig in a little bit about it, but thoughtfully, apply based on what we think might be important to put into a grant like that. So I'm assuming they're going to continue that as a part of the dyslexia law because it hasn't even been put into place for school districts. It starts in the 27, 28. So the law is there, but the requirements for school districts isn't there yet, so we're preparing. And so that's what we spend a lot of time is saying, so what do we need? And so, yes, we might leave a little bit of money left on the table for this, for Tier 1 materials, but maybe, we might work with our principals and our teachers and say we want to apply for a different part of that grant moving forward.
And the other thing I just wanted to say is we're so impressed with the work you do, and all of our departments do, in finding these grants. It's just amazing when you get $1.1 million on a grant. And I probably speak for the board that we are so appreciative of all you guys do.
My pleasure.
To get these grants. It's just amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, it can't be overstated. And we appreciate you being proactive. And that's kind of like on trend for our district and finding ways to think ahead of what's coming. So thank you.
You're welcome. We don't want to wait for the law to start, right? We want to be prepared.
absolutely.
Right, so, absolutely.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Brien. And that concludes the Division of Instruction.
So for Division of Instruction, we will not be having a vote on the middle school swim update, correct, Mrs. Oquist? Because that's
Correct.
just going to be part
It's
of the
part of the
budget
budget.
in June?
Yes.
Okay. But we will be voting on the textbook and the grant purchase. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And at this time, I'll turn it back over to Mrs. Acosta for the Finance Committee.
Thank you, President Burton. Item 5A is 2026-2027 Wayne Risa budget. Mrs. Smith is with us.
Good evening. Thank you very much. So as you know, Wayne Risa is required to adopt a budget similar to us before July 1st, but an additional step for them, they're required to share their general fund budget with local school districts and ask for either the district's support or disapproval, and if so, why. And they're required to, or we're required to have that back to them by June 1st. So in addition to the general fund, they do share all the funds that they manage, similar to us, how we have different funds to help track our costs. They have the same. I did make note of a few special things that I wanted to highlight for the board. First and foremost, on the general fund, the one that they are officially asking for our opinion on, their general fund ending fund balance percentage is slated to be 65% for this year, 25-26. And in their proposed budget, it's going to have an ending fund balance of 56%. So we know it because we live and breathe it. Our target is 15 to 20%. That's what's recommended by the Michigan School Business officials. So to say that their general fund appears healthy is an understatement. That's great. So a lot of stability for Wayne Risa. The other fund that we hone in on is the Act 18 fund, and as a special education Act 18 operator, that's important to us. Their ending fund balance for this year in the Act 18 fund is 71.5%, and in their proposed budget, they're estimating that that will be 61.9%. So again, very healthy. That is a decrease from where it has been, so they
Which is
are
over
using,
100%.
exactly, it was
Definitely
over
spending
100.
it down.
But again, still in a very healthy position. One thing that they have shared is this proposed budget includes a 50% reduction in, I'll call it one time, we know it's not one time reimbursement to local school districts for their unreimbursed special education costs. So they give us two separate payments. One is for unreimbursed special education transportation costs. And right now, that's funded 70% by the state, and so they're making us whole with that remaining 30%. In their proposed budget, they're continuing to support that payment. So for us, that's just over $1 million for unreimbursed transportation costs. The second payment, that was the first, we've probably been getting that for the last decade. Then, a number of years ago, I'd say at least 5 years ago, they added a second reimbursement for unreimbursed special education program costs. So these would be instructional costs that we're incurring. We annually report those costs up to the state of Michigan, and they reimburse us, it was 28%. So we have about $10 million worth of unfunded, I'll say, special education costs in the general fund. They haven't made us whole. They don't have enough money to do that. But that special education payment is in the neighborhood for us of, I want to say, about $2 million. So that's definitely going to be an impact. So that's something I think we need to continue to monitor closely. Both Ms. Oquist and myself have been very vocal with Wayne Risa about the impact that receiving those funds has on our general fund. We'd like it to continue as long as possible. But I also can't fault them for being conservative with their budgeting. They want to see how their budget plays out. But of course, if their fund balance comes in stronger than what they're projecting, I definitely think that's something that we should advocate for them returning to the full reimbursement that they were making, not a 50% reduction. One thing on the program side that I know Ms. Sproul would acknowledge, they've been very advantageous to the operating districts when we say that there's things that we need to run our programs. Maybe what was denied in the past, they are saying yes to, so we are seeing some additional support for our students, so that's wonderful. That is coming at a cost, though. They're seeing their operating costs in the Act 18 fund increase, which is, I think, what's causing them to then pump the brakes a bit on these other reimbursements that they're making to districts. So that's definitely something that we want to keep on our radar. And of course, I'll pause there to see if there's any messages that you would like me to share with Wayne Risa, or if there's any questions I can answer about that, or anything else in their budget.
President Burton.
So I understand, the 50% reduction came off of not the transportation portion of special education, but rather the programming, the amount that they have been reimbursing us for programming for special education.
Correct.
And Livonia Public Schools houses that special education program on behalf of several districts in Western Wayne County.
Let me clarify. For the programs that we're operating on behalf of Wayne County, they make us 100% whole. So our MOCI program, VI program, Work Skills, and ASD, our autism program, we're 100% made whole through the state first and then the county. What's this payment that they're talking about cutting is the one for our general fund special education costs. So like students receiving resource room supports, that wouldn't be a countywide program, that would be a local program, or like our local centers, when we talk about MARP, that multi-age resource program, those would be all costs that our general fund are incurring. We get a foundation allowance for students, and we definitely are seeing a shift, an improvement from the state as far as how they're funding special education. They're taking into consideration the School Finance Research Collaborative, but we are definitely not 100% when it comes to special education funds. So, so that's the piece that, again, Wayne Risa hasn't been making school districts whole, but they have been giving some money towards those costs. And those payments aren't just going to the Act 18 operating districts, those are going to all the Wayne County districts all of the Wayne County districts. And they base that reimbursement on the report that we submit to the state. So the state tells us, here's a list of all the expenditures that you can submit to us, and they've got certain ones that they disallow, but a great example would be like our resource room teachers. We report 100% of the cost of the resource room teachers, and through that report process, we are getting about a 28% reimbursement of those costs. And now they, again, have built in some additional reimbursements from the state, but they're definitely still not making us whole. So hopefully, I see where
But I don't think any ISD is doing that.
No.
So
No.
that's not just specific to RISA.
Right. Yeah.
That's not happening in any ISD.
Based on that information, And the fact that they're coming out with 56% fund balance and 61% fund balance next year, which is triple more than what's recommended. And yet they're cutting some of our reimbursements by 50%. I recognize that their fund balance is going down somewhat, but that's still enormous. Therefore, if they're proposing a 50% cut in one of those categories, I'm not in favor of this budget. And that is the sole reason why. I appreciate the fact that they are reimbursing our transportation back to 100% again for our special ed kids. But if they're looking at cutting us 50% on something that they have traditionally been funding, while they maintain these enormous fund balances, I am not in favor of the budget that they're presenting.
I will definitely share that with Wayne Risa. Yep.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Thank you. Last week, Risa had some Zoom calls, and they were informational calls based on this budget. I attended one of them. It was very informative. They are supposed to be releasing the videos of those calls. I haven't yet seen anything that says those have come out yet, but when they do, I'll certainly let you know, and we can take a look at them. I actually asked that very same question. They had an answer. I didn't bring my notes with me tonight, and I don't want to misspeak it, but they did address that. So I recommend that everyone who gets that opportunity to watch the Zoom calls, take a look at those, review the budget, and then at least we can make a more informed decision.
I believe we just got the links to the slides this afternoon, so I will forward that to you.
Perfect.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Jensen?
I'll just say, I saw the same thing that President Burton did with they have a hefty fund balance, but they're cutting us 50%. I mean, I don't understand that, and it may be, when I see the slides, there's an explanation for it, but just because there's an explanation doesn't, in my mind, justify the fact that they have this high fund balance and they're cutting. I don't get it, and I wouldn't be in favor of it. Again, until I see all of the facts that I may not have, I may change my mind, but sitting here right now, I agree with Mrs. Burton.
I'm wondering if it would be helpful to us. I think one thing I would pause us on is comparing ISD fund balances with local district fund balances. They function very, very differently. And so perhaps one of the things that might be helpful for us or for the board would be to have the general sense of what the average would be for fund balance in ISDs. Because their budget is very different, they function very differently, and the variability of needs of districts and students across an entire county is, I would assume, much more difficult to predict than it would be within a single local district. When you're talking about 33 school districts, including Detroit Public Schools, which is an extraordinarily, our largest district in the state, and then over 93 PSAs, I'm going to assume that the variability of that and the needs within that entity vary considerably. So I do want to note that I believe that the planned use of fund balance from being over 100% fund balance to dropping into the 60s or to the 50s, while that may still sound quite large to us, I think that's a significant decrease in just a 3-year period from where they were to where they are now. And I do know, as Mrs. Smith had said, that they have been very supportive of our requests for Act 18 programming costs. So I do not feel that we have missed out on opportunities that we felt were necessary within the district. I think structurally funding for schools, specifically students with added needs, whether it's EL learners, special education, or other at-risk learners, needs a complete overhaul at the state level. And I would say I don't believe that falls entirely on the ISDs. So again, we can certainly bring that back. What I would encourage, if we have that specific question, is to perhaps have Mrs. Smith ask that of Drew McMeekin, who is the CFO at RISA, and have him be able to respond to our board directly on that before we would want to bring forward a no vote. because I believe that there has been quite a bit of time spent with their board and spending time on the overview. And so I just forwarded to the whole board the slides and then an FAQ and some other information that was just sent to us today. So that you have that, we can bring this information back. But I do think perhaps it would be helpful to have that comparison piece for fund balances of ISDs as opposed to thinking about it from a local district perspective.
Mr. Johnson?
Well, then that maybe perhaps begs the question, if we have a recommended range as an individual school district, 15 to 20%, is there such a recommended
Right.
fund balance for an ISD? And if there is, are they within that recommended fund balance? Now, that may change my opinion as well, if there's a recommendation there within it. I think that would be very helpful to know as well.
Okay.
I know that.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
Yep, my pleasure.
Okay, and for item 5B, we have the annual appointment of auditor.
Perfect, thank you. So hot off the presses, my apologies, because this is just getting to you. I've got a couple different proposals to share with you from different external audit firms. But before we get into that, I do just want to pause. I know the board's really aware, very well aware of what the audit does for us, but maybe for our community members that are listening in, this is a reassurance. It's external experts, accounting experts coming into our audit and testing our controls, pulling expenditures, looking at the support, looking at the approval process, looking at payroll records, testing for internal control weaknesses or operational inefficiencies. They make sure that what we are putting in our financial statements is accurate. They spend quite a bit of time with us. This is not only are they testing all of our general fund, they're testing that against compliance standards and board policies and any state regulations. They're also performing that single audit. So a single audit is required when you're receiving, I think the number just went up. It was $750,000. It might be $1 million. If you're receiving more than $1 million of federal grants, you're required to have a single audit performed. We are definitely receiving well over $1 million, probably closer to $20 million. So this audit covers that. So it's a very important function. And again, it's a reassurance to our community that we're spending the tax dollars as they were intended to be spent. And not only are we spending it accurately, we have controls in place to make sure that they're safeguarded appropriately. So a very important function. We've been served very well over the last number of years by our the audit firm Plant Moran. We have been with them, I want to say, since 2012. Prior to that, we were with Yo and Yo. And last week, as I shared with you, because it had been a little while, I asked if the board would like to see some other proposals. So I do have proposals. I only reached out to large firms, firms that are reputable, firms that come to the Michigan School Business Officials functions and perform professional development for the 500-plus districts here in Michigan. So really, we're looking for big names. And again, I think that brings a level of comfort to our community that we're going with people that know what to test for, know what to look for. The three that I have for you is Plant Moran, again, the firm we are currently using, Yo and Yo. Yo and Yo is currently performing our bond and sinking fund audit. So because we use Plant Moran Real Point as an owner's rep, as an additional level of assurance, we went with another firm, even though Plant Moran, the audit firm, is different than Plant Moran Real Point, the owner's rep. We have Yo and Yo come in and do our testing for our bond. So, in fact, they're just wrapping up the Series 2 bond audit as we speak. But it's limited to the bond and the sinking fund. It hasn't been our full financial statements that they're looking at. So, Yo and Yo is that second. And then the next is the Raymond audit firm. And again, a very large firm. They're presenters often at our MSBO conferences. So that is included with you. They've taken quite a bit of time and put together a really robust proposal for us, and I'm happy to get these uploaded for the community to see as well. Really going into exactly what they do when they come on site. What are they looking for? What are they testing? Kind of some of the services that they do, the team members that they're looking to, bring on for us. So they put together a lot of information for us. So I feel very confident saying we are in good hands with any of the firms that we go to. You can't go wrong with any of them. Each one, I guess, a little bit different by, no surprise, Plant Moran would be the largest national company, does the most school districts, but I did think it would be interesting, and it's the very last paper. It's not very fancy looking, but I surveyed Wayne County districts to find out what audit firm they were using. So that's the last page, and then I just sorted it by the audit firm. So you can see Plant Moran and Yo are pretty close as far as the most heavily used. Not all not all school districts responded, but quite a few of them did. Next was Raymond, so all three that we have proposals from are ones that are used throughout the district. Raymond, I'll say, again, they come often to our MSBO conferences, but I'll just say, just feels like they maybe do fewer than Yo, so I did reach out to my colleague in Allen Park who uses Raymond to find out what their take was, and they had a very positive experience with Raymond. They've been using them for a number of years now, so that was a good assurance that we'd be in good hands with them. A couple others of note, Taylor and Morgan, I'll be honest, I've never heard of them. I'm sure that they do a great job, but I think for all of us, our comfort level is going with a name recognition. And then the next one is Maynard. I should be able to pronounce that. Castier, thank you.
Casterison.
Thank you. I'll be honest, I think an average person on the street probably has not heard of that firm. I've heard of it because, again, they're a regular presenter at MSBO, so that, I'll say, has some name recognition to it, but maybe a little bit less common than the three that I brought for you, the Plant Moran, Yo, and Raymond. So again, lots of information presented in their packet. I will boil it down for you fee-wise. I will say the fees, in my opinion, are very much in line with each other. Based on our $185 million general fund budget, to see the variance that we see in their fees is nothing that I think should sway the board with going from one firm to the other. This really is, I'll say, a personal preference if the board has one. Plant Moran came in with a fee for this audit of $60,900. I do want to make note that we, again, because of our relationship with Plant Moran Real Point, we also do incur a fee for that bond audit. So that is one note. Yo came in with a fee for this current year of $58,400. So again, compared to $60,900, it's lower, but it's, I'll say, not material. They would offer a discount. We currently use them for our bond audit, and as a standalone project, the fee this year is $12,000. If we went with them for our main audit, they'd offer us a discount on the, and it's not, I'll say they're going to be testing for the bond every single year and the sinking fund every single year as far as the main audit goes. But one of the things that the Michigan Department of Treasury requires is, as you're nearing completion of your bond and you've spent at least 85% of the funds, we have to have a certification letter issued by an audit firm that we then share with the state that, again, certifies that we spent the bond funds as they were intended to be spent, that we hit those benchmark spending deadlines. So that would be something in addition to the normal annual audit, and that the Treasury has now required that be done. It can be done annually, but it also can be done at the end of the audit. Because our series are being spent so fast, we've chosen to do it at the end of the bond audit because it's only 2 years. So they've done the 2021 series for us, and again, the 2023 series, they're wrapping up this month. It'll be wrapped up, and then probably within the next 6 months, we'll be wrapping up the 2025 series, so that'll be all done. So I don't know that I got to the bottom line. The bottom line to that, they would offer us a discount, and there would be a fee of $3,000 for that one time, like the certification letter and that compliance letter. And then the last was Raymond, and their proposed fee for this audit was $49,000. So Raymond is the smallest fee but, you know, within roughly $10,000 of the other one, and on a $185 million budget, I don't think the board should feel that should be swayed one way or another with that. All of the fees are very much in line. And again, all the firms are big players in school district audits, you know, all have a good lineup of folks that we can rely on, ask questions throughout the year, which is invaluable. We talked last week about kind of their plan for staffing for Plant Moran. I have not been able to talk to Lisa yet. Lisa Vargo is our partner in charge with Plant Moran, but I'm confident that we'll be able to connect, and that won't be a concern, that we'll get a good team on deck for us. So that's a lot of information. And again, I'm giving you a lot of the paper packets right now, but I'll pause there and see if there's any questions I can answer for the board, and we can go from there.
Mr. McFarland?
Were all three of these firms given the same notice that we wanted, kind of a presentation packet?
Yes.
Okay.
Did we ask for that from Plant Moran, or did we just ask for an updated engagement letter?
Honestly, now that you say that, an engagement letter.
Yeah.
If you would like a proposal.
No,
Okay.
that answers my question.
Okay.
Because two are far more
robust.
aesthetically pleasing than the other, but I just wanted to make sure that it was equal asked, and if it wasn't, that makes a lot of sense then.
Yeah.
Okay.
President Burton?
How do these fees compare with what we paid Plant Moran last year?
It was, I believe it's a 5% increase for Plant Moran. And they are calling it, in their letter, a technology fee. You know what, I'm sorry, I misspoke. We estimate our fee for this engagement will be approximately $58,000. And I believe that was in line with what it was last year. But then they're proposing, in addition to the fee for the services provided, our statements will include a separate charge for expenses, including out-of-pocket expenses reasonably incurred by Plant Moran in the performance of this engagement, and a technology expense charge calculated as 5% of fees to cover expenses incurred by Plant Moran related to software licenses, data storage, cybersecurity, and other technology expenses. So, I'll be completely frank, that feels like a little bit of a fancy way to pass along a 5% increase, but again, a 5% increase, you know, what that works out to, it's not a deal breaker for our district by any means, but 5% is the ask.
Okay. Yep, my bigger concern, I appreciate the fact that these three are very similar in cost. My biggest concern is the staffing situation, that we're comfortable with who they have assigned to our audit. So if you could get back with us on that seems, and from my perspective, I would like it expressed to them how critical that is to us and to our team.
Absolutely. And I can make sure, I'm sure Lisa Vargo, we can make sure that we get that scheduled the next day or so that I can provide an update to the board before we vote on that next week. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my own opinion is, I would prefer to see us stay with Plant Moran, because they are the largest player in education and accounting in the state of Michigan, from my understanding. But it would be contingent upon satisfactory answers with your conversation with Lisa about who is on our team, now that Dave Marchese has gone on to other employment, and we would be having new folks, and I just want to make sure that that's right. If you are satisfied that we have solid answers from that, from Lisa on that topic, then I would rather see us stay with Plant Moran. Otherwise, my thoughts would go elsewhere.
Okay. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
My recollection was Mr. Marchese was gone for our last audit.
He was. So he
Okay.
left December of '24. So for our audit for June '25, we had a new team in the district, a new manager.
That was my recollection.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you. I was going to say the same thing. That's kind of what I was looking for in the engagement letter, some mention to just addressing our concerns regarding who would be providing the direct services for our district. So, thank you.
I don't think that they were aware that we
That was
were
an ask.
asking for, just to in all fairness, I just want to make sure that
Yes,
if we're
Yep.
discussing this publicly,
Yes.
that
Right.
I believe they sent a typical engagement letter for the following year to a district they've worked with
Right, multiple
previously.
times.
Yep, I'm sure if we asked
Yes.
for a proposal that you would provide for a new client, they would be more than happy to do that. And we can do that if you'd like.
and so, yes, so I was just saying, that's what I know that was my question, and it was answered, with what you stated, so that was just what I was immediately was like reading through, like, is there any statement about, them acknowledging that there was a change? So, thank you. President Byrne.
Can you get back with us with that answer prior to our voting on this topic? Because
Absolutely.
it's key for me, and I'm hearing that it's a thought or a concern for other board members also.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a piece of information that I would need before I can vote on this.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you. And so this will still be on for voting for,
Yes,
Yep.
for the
Yeah.
May 26th meeting.
thank you. And that concludes the Finance Committee report.
All righty, thank you. Next item up is the Board Policy Committee. Mrs. Frank is not here this evening, so I'll turn it over to Mrs. Jarvis.
Thank you. Let me just pull that up. The first thing on our agenda is the first thing on the agenda is the board policy individual employment contracts with Mrs. Smith.
You're stuck with me. I'm still here. So what I have for you tonight is a proposed new board policy to be added to our section C, which is general school administration. And I know the board's well aware of this, that you have delegated authority to Andrea to work out the employment contracts for all of our employees that are not affiliated with a collective bargaining agreement. So that's been the longstanding practice. This isn't a change in practice. This is, that authority is granted through the superintendent's contract. But this is an additional level of transparency, something that was recommended through one of the MSBO conferences that I attended, that it's helpful to have a document like this, a board policy in place. Should an individual be retiring, it's something that we can provide to the Office of Retirement Services that gives them a reassurance that, yes, indeed, the superintendent does have authority to establish those terms and conditions. So with your permission, I'll read this new policy into the record. I'm proposing, and again, this is all up for discussion tonight. I called it individual employment contracts, and the section, again, under C. And the policy would read, the Board of Education recognizes the need to establish clear and consistent employment terms for employees who are not covered by a collective bargaining agreement. The board hereby authorizes the superintendent or designee to develop, negotiate, and execute individual employment contracts for non-affiliated employees on behalf of the district. In exercising this authority, the superintendent shall ensure that all such contracts, that does not read right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I think it
Does it?
does. That all such
Yep.
contracts.
Oh, thank you.
And then each of those, I
Thank
think
you.
you're right on the right track.
Yep, it
I'll
looks
try
good.
that again. In exercising this authority, the superintendent shall ensure that all such contracts, thank you, are consistent with established district compensation practices, benefit structures, and budgetary limitations. B, comply with all applicable federal and state laws, regulations, and board policies. And C, include appropriate provisions regarding duties, compensation, work year, evaluation, and separation of employment. Happy to hear if you have any suggestions or if that seems to capture what you'd like to see.
Questions or comments?
I think it looks good.
Home run.
Yep. One,
Mr. Johnson.
just to be consistent with other policies, the first sentence of the second paragraph, where it says "or designee," don't we usually use his or her
Yep. I can make that.
designee?
Yep.
Otherwise, I'm fine with the language.
Perfect. I'll update that and then get that included in your packet for next week. And with your permission, I'd love to put that on for our first reading next week.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
Thank you.
And President Burton, that concludes the policy committee.
Thank you, and I'm going to turn it back over to you for the legislative committee.
At this time, there are no items on the legislative committee agenda. Mrs. Oquist?
We do not.
Thank you very much.
All righty. That brings us to the end of our agenda this evening. We wish you a nice evening, a nice couple of weeks, and we will see you back for our next general or voting meeting on Tuesday, May 26th. In the meantime, have a nice Memorial Day weekend. We're there already. Have a nice evening. We are adjourned.